Ramesh Kumar, Jayalakshmi, Mr. Ambreesh, and others probably I am not able to remember your names who are present here. Now talking about rural development, if I go back in the history, when the Britishers started ruling this country, their basic aim was to exploit the wealth of this country, and very little was paid for the welfare of the public and people. Whatever was done was with a commercial motive behind. All roads, railway lines basically were formed so that the hinterland's wealth can be taken to the port and then the British Raj can be prosperous. First little of intervention was made in Montesquieu Morley reform in 1990. So that was just what we call a lip service rather than doing anything, which resulted in nothing, and then there were agitations and many things happened, and ultimately the Government of India Act 1935 provided certain sectors where where autonomy will be given, and they also envisaged that under home rule elections will be conducted and interim governments will be formed in some states where subjects like agriculture, education, something like social welfare, etc. will be given to these chosen local self-government. From that day, I remember Rafi Ahmed Kidwai was the agriculture minister and was always worried about the state of agriculture in the country in 1940 and just when world was there. At that time only agriculture was considered that if we improve agriculture, probably the prosperity of the villages will improve by leaps and bounds. But agriculture was in a very, very primitive stage, depending only on the rainfall. If good rains are there, people can hope for good returns, otherwise there will be drought, famine. And you still remember those who have worked in the revenue department, there is a word known as takabi. Takabi basically was given a loan by the revenue department because at that time banking network was very minimal and banks were also not doing any type of such work. So ultimately, in a very, very severe cases where the impact of the drought and famine was so alarming, then the government used to give a small loan which were known as takabi. So when country got freedom in 1947, then this was a very serious question that how we can develop our villages. At the time, American government came forward and then they started the community development stage 1 program. With the American assistance, it was taken up in few selected village blocks in the country. Districts were divided into community development blocks, and certain blocks were taken up for the community development. And it was envisaged that if the rural community is developed, each and everybody will get benefit out of it. And then stage 2 were taken up, and then under Mehta, Balwant Rai Mehta, the Panchayat Raj given to in 4, and Rajasthan became one of the states where Panchayat Raj took over the community development, and more experiments were done. It was a sheer coincidence that my father was working as a block development officer in Uttar Pradesh, and at that time there was nothing like that you keep your family in the district headquarters or Hyderabad and work alone in the field. Families were also there along with the officers, so we were also there in the small villages. Somehow the schools and other things were so bad that I prefer not to go to school than study at residence itself. And then I had a lot of time, so I used to attend these Gram Sevaks meeting invariably without any break. And all the material which was distributed to the Gram Sevak, the first thing will be, I told the librarian, if you do not give me one set, then probably you may not be able to live in this block. So ceremonially he used to give all the material one day in advance. So I read everything, and then I was ahead of the Gram Sevaks in as far as knowledge and the programs were concerned, because I'll read in day advance, then the Gram Seva. And that has built up a sense of vision from a very early childhood that what is happening in the villages, what is to be done in the villages, what was community development, how the community was organized, and what good works were done, and what were the shortcomings, and what subsequently happened by bringing Panchayat Raj institutions like we did, by making it public representative to man these things, and so many things. I was discussing with your principal secretary. At that time, there was one pivotal role which was being played for all the things was what we used to call in Gram Seva. He was the basically extension officer of all the departments, whether it's agriculture, whether it's a cooperation, whether it's a Panchayat Raj, whether it's a health, animal husbandry, any department you take. It was his duty to take messages, programs to the village, convince the village, and all the Gram Sevak used to live in the village. Most were knowing each and everybody in the villages of their jurisdiction. If you ask them who will take up these type of program, within 2-3 minutes they will think and will give you replies. So that was a totally different set of environment where almost all the efforts of the government were reaching to the village. I remember at that time the chemical fertilizers started. And the ammonium sulfate, probably many of you may not be knowing which was the first chemical fertilizer which came, which was used. Everybody will say urea. Urea came very late. First chemical fertilizer which on a mass scale started was ammonium sulfate. And unfortunately, ammonium sulfate and sugar, they look like very similar. So the number of fellows, they thought it is a sugar, so many took in small bags and other thing and prepared tea and started taking. Then they found it taste different. Then they realized it's not sugar. So from these days that nobody was willing to use improved seed, nobody was willing to use any fertilizer, nobody was willing to use any new improvement in agriculture. So basically you have to convince each and every farmer by demonstration, you have to take some demonstration, you have to convince, you can tell them that it is happening in large number of countries, and slowly these things were taken to the villagers and villagers started accepting. Somehow subsequently line department started asserting themselves that no, we should have our own agencies in the villages like agriculture department and other. So this one-man concept of taking up all the programs in the villages and doing everything was then almost got shattered, and then you have agriculture extension officer who was doing only agriculture extension, has nothing to do with other department. And that also he was given large number of villages, so he was not found anywhere. From that type of setup, we have come. Now, still, you are doing quite a lot. And I think APARD here is much ahead than a large number of State Institute of Rural Development, SIRDs. But despite taking all these things, what is the impact? If you really look into the impact when people were not very trained was much more than now. You say we have given all these things, but you are forgetting that in number of villages the sarpanch election cost more than 5 crore rupees. 5 crore, one sarpanch in this estate.
Yes, sir. Shamshabad.
In this estate. Spending 5 crores in a sarpanch election and then teaching him do's and don'ts, what should be this thing, generally is not getting much eyes. There has to a way for looking all these things, and probably what you are doing in Bharat Nirman may be one good leap in this direction. that people should be made aware, they should be made enlightened, they should be made aware of their rights, they should be made aware what is there for them by the government. And with the revolution in IT and communication, it is not very difficult to send a consolidated information to these volunteers and everybody, so that they should know what is the allotment of ration, how much Manrega works have been sanctioned, what are the other things which will be given, what is the number of inmates in the Anganwadi center, if there is a social welfare hostel, how many inmates are there. And then if it is given an open platform for them, that with anonymity they can say that in this Anganwadi worker, though you have indicated 127 children are there, but hardly 20 children are coming. Or you have said that 200, 300 workers are working in Manrega, but only we have seen that not more than 50 are working. So that type of things which we are taking up and making the society responsible, that let them think what is there for them from the government. And that information is available to all now. What was happening earlier, that information was guarded and shielded very actively by these persons. Nobody could know what is the budget, how many works will be taken up, how many works will be taken up, what is the other facilities available for us. Now once you are decimating information to each and everybody, then there is bound to be improvement. And our efforts and all our energies must channelize for making this route little more strictly. Training, different interventions, IT support, supported by communication, making a voluntary effort to look into this thing, making the social audit more voluntary, more purposeful, making these persons responsible once the society reacts to them, then making the person responsible for these things will go in a long way. And I'm happy that you have prepared large number of modules for these workers and other things. And there will be basically nothing can replace a lively discussion, man-to-man contact, but we can't organize so many training at village level or mandal level. So the second best choice will be that let us prepare a very interactive program which you have done, and they should be useful. But now we have to look into the ways and means. How training and revolution in IT and communication can lead to improvement of government. And that is the direction where we have to work now in future. Now, if we look into like what our social welfare sector, some efforts have been done. They have been asked to declare how many inmates are there in hostel or how many students are in engineering colleges. And then once you have committed this thing, if it's found false, then action will be initiated. That has resulted into large number of reductions. Some 70,000 inmates were found to be bogus and surrendered by the superintendent themselves. So here, if APARD goes and provide necessary inputs, necessary training, and then which type of IT support can be taken up, we can discuss with the other professionals in this area what has been done here in our country or outside for monitoring. And now once monitoring is there, then there is no end of monitoring and feedback. So once this feedback and monitoring is available and it is used for improving the system, I think that will be the best thing which can happen. And our future training, apart from what we are doing now, should concentrate more on these type of things. Now, for example, your mate here is given a something, one small equipment, which may be a mobile set or maybe a different type of set, where each and every person who comes puts his thumb there, and then it is checked with the central processing unit here, and then that he's a genuine worker or not, or otherwise like earlier muster roll, one person takes thumb impression and put thumb everywhere, and ultimately it is certified and then we have paid. So such type of module let us look into very cost effective. we go for a very expensive type of model, that will not be very useful. So we have to look into a technology which is very cheap and cost effective and reliable. And now our efforts should be in this direction, and let us look into that all those departments, tribal welfare, social welfare, agriculture, and all any other allied sectors join hand to strengthen the training and to strengthen the monitoring and feedback of their program, and which will definitely improve our delivery system, monitoring system, and ultimately total satisfaction of the public for which we are making our efforts. Now, anything will only be possible when we accept, our heart accepts this. If our heart does not accept, then probably we will be a player which is where we are with the game, but our heart lies elsewhere. So that is half-hearted. And then such type of thing, willing persons are very important. Now, the incident which you were saying, I think I must repeat because you could not understand well. Now, the gender thing was this, that in this country and many of the Asian countries, African countries, they think that being taken a birth as a girl child is a curse. And so in a movie, Umrao Zone 2, there is a song which says, "Ab tak ye ho data, aisa na kijo, agle janam mohe bitiya na kijo." Whatever you have done, God, you have done it. But in my next birth, please don't give birth me as a girl child. And I said that our efforts, if they change this song into "Ab tak ye ho data, aisa hi kijo, agle janam mohe bitiya hi kijo." Whatever you have done, again please do that in my next birth, please give me a birth as a girl child. Then only we can think that whatever we are doing, slogans, trainings, programs, they are birth only of this salt. If that is, agle janam mohe bitiya na kijo to agle janam mohe bitiya hi kijo. Then only it is success. So, I hope with whatever extremely good work you have done, you will be able to again reach new heights in the new arena which are untouched, where we can look forward, like-minded persons, like-minded group, like-minded things. And I hope that since a lot of land is here, a lot of international support will come. But let us not forget that our own land, our own people, our own language, our own scent of our soil is more important than any experience elsewhere in the world. Let us get the money, but let us do work in the way